Welcome back. Hunter Biden on Capitol Hill today, not to comply with his subpoena for the deposition that they requested of him, but to defend his father and blast Republicans.
And they have tried to dehumanize me, all to embarrass and damage my father, who has devoted his entire public life to service. Let me state as clearly as I can, my father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad, and certainly not as an artist.
Choosing those words very carefully. Kudlow host Larry Kudlow joins us now. Now they're saying not financially involved, when before it was not involved at all.
Yeah, well, we went from not involved at all to not involved in business dealings to not involved in financial dealings. Pretty clever stuff, moving those goalposts. You couldn't get that at the Meadowlands. They'd never allow it. You know, I want to say this. I watched it on YouTube just to see, because we're going to cover it like you are later tonight. I think I don't agree with his position. I mean, he should be deposed like every other witness before the Oversight Committee. And by the way, held in contempt of the House. We'll see where that goes. Steve Bannon was held in contempt of the House and went to jail for a couple months, okay? My guess is the Justice Department under Merrick Garland will not execute that, but he is breaking that law. But I will say this. I think he gave a good account of himself in an election year speech, and he and Abby Lowell, the Washington lawyer, who's a very smart fella, I know him just tangentially, you know, they did the best they could. Their product isn't very good.
Yeah.
We will. I'll be very interested to see if we get an official authorized impeachment inquiry in the House. And I frankly think not all the dots are connected with respect to influence peddling and bribery. Okay, I think that we need depositions in the House, but I think Hunter's trial, you know, he's under indictment in Los Angeles now and in Wilmington, Delaware. We'll see what comes out of that. I mean, those may be more promising avenues.
But they're saying if they get the inquiry, that the White House basically has been holding back on giving information that's necessary to connect maybe some of those dots, that if you get the inquiry, then you can compel some of that information.
Good luck on that. Good luck on that. I mean, really.
Well, they couldn't compel him today. They couldn't compel him to sit in front of Congress. How are they going to compel him with the impeachment inquiry?
No, that's right. And and again, I think as a practical matter, the indictments that he is now charged with give him an excuse not to go in there.
Right.
I've always felt that way. So, look, we're going to see what happens. I think more work has to be done. I think we definitely know that Papa Biden was involved in son Biden's business dealings and financial dealings. Okay, I think we absolutely know that. But that is a political issue more than a legal issue. We don't know legally yet how that's going to turn out. I'm being very fair here, and Republicans have to be careful. They have to be careful. This issue, in my opinion, is not as important as things like inflation and economic growth and the health of the economy. Honestly, be careful. Or the border. The economy and the border are the biggest issues right now. I believe that will continue through much of the election year. GOP should not get sidelined on a lot of legal stuff that may take a long time.
I think we should go to Fed.
Yeah.
We got a few minutes left. Fed's coming. I want to talk about that because, Larry, I think you've got a take on next year that's rather interesting to me. Well, you're a little concerned about maybe recession, but not because inflation taps people out.
Right. We had an inflationary recession in the first half of 2022. 2 negative GDPs with very high inflation, 7, 8, 9, 10%. Okay. Then we had a bit of a recovery, mini recovery. I think the biggest threat right now is deflationary recession. And I'm looking at a bunch of indicators. Number one, the money supply has collapsed in the last 18 months. The M2 money supply has absolutely collapsed. Loan demand is shrinking, by the way, same story. The index of leading indicators down, 19 straight months. And finally, the yield curve remains inverted, in fact, quite steeply inverted with this bond market rally. All three of those are classic recession indicators. I looked at the producer price index today. It's deflating. Last 3 months, it's flat, minus 0.2%. And the new PPI, the old PPI, which many economists on Wall Street think is better than the new PPI, is down almost 4%, minus 3.9 at an annual rate for the past 3 months. I'm also watching commodity prices slump. That includes oil and energy prices slumping. I think that's the biggest threat. Wall Street loves the drop in market interest rates, which is terrific. I'm all for it. The Kudlow Trust owns the S&P index. It always does. It never moves out of it. But I don't think the Fed's in any rush to slash their policy target rate. And I think Jay Powell is going to indicate that today. The market's pricing in, 4 rate cuts, I think, next year.
Full percentage.
All right. That may happen. That kind of thing may happen in the back end of next year. But I don't think the Fed is in any rush because they still have a CPI and a PCE deflator that are above their 2% target. But those may be lagging indicators. Caveat emptor. Be warned.
You know, we talk a lot about, budgetary issues, politics. Biden right now is pressing for more spending.
Budget is a catastrophe.
Right.
The budget is an absolute catastrophe right now.
And he wants $100 million more.
Incredible. 100 million, heck. 100, yeah, I know, 100 million is not good, but they're looking at another $2 trillion deficit with an economy that has virtually full employment at 3.7% unemployment rate. I mean, it's really crazy stuff that you're seeing. Out of control, and and eventually that fiscal problem could easily translate into more inflation down the road.
Well, that's where the deflation thing gets tricky because you've got the regulations, you've got the spending. I mean, even if we got some deflationary pressure, this is an administration that wants to make life more expensive for you, Larry. I mean, that doesn't sound like deflation.
And no. And with the CPI running faster than wages, right, the affordability issue was front and center in this election. You're still losing money. Okay, and interest rates are still too high.
When was the last time we saw a deflationary situation that you could correlate to what we're seeing now?
We saw good deflation in the 90s, and we saw bad deflation in the early 80s when Paul Volcker had to scrape inflation out.
Yeah.
He was turning the screws hard in the early 80s.
The 90s were good, Dick. Good deflation is technological-driven deflation. And by the way,
productivity.
There is some of that with the AI revolution. There is some of that going on. That's
I got to get out early because we've got the Fed decision.